What up, YouTube? It's Matty B. Welcome back to the channel, and as always, thank y'all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. We're getting to that time of the year where people are starting to get the conversations going with team switches, extensions, and everything in between. It seems like it would be a little bit too early right now since we haven't even finished Supercross and Pro Motocross is still a few weeks away, but these things start up way sooner than you think. A lot of these deals have been in motion for months. And before I get too much further into this, I'm just going to get real with you guys for a second. I'm not even going to try to act like I'm some insider and have all these exclusive scoops and this and that. I have a few sources with my boys at the Main Event Moto podcast, but for the most part, I'm just listening to podcasts, watching videos, and keeping up with the media. And I think the main sources on a lot of this info are Steve Mathis from Pulp MX, Michael Lindsay and Lewis Phillips from Vital MX, a little bit from Racer X, some from Swap Moto Live, and there's more out there. But a lot of you that watch my videos, you may or may not have the time to keep up with all that stuff. So I want to just try to give you as much information as I can, as quickly as I can, on who may be switching teams, who's sticking around, and much more. But before I get all the way into all that, got to give a huge thank you and a shout out to my channel sponsors.
QuickMoto.com. If you're in need of some graphics, backgrounds, canopies, and much more, use my code on screen for 20% off. Also, Sirius Studio. I'm now a partner in the company, so anything you buy on their website using my code MB820, a small slice of that goes to me to help keep the channel going. And last but not least, my boy AJ is doing a Tesla Model 3 giveaway. I have all the info in my video description on how to enter, and make sure to check him out on X, Instagram, and YouTube at AJ Writes Crypto.
We'll start off with one of the bigger ones that's been a huge point of conversation so far this season, and that is the Monster Energy Kawasaki team, as they are rumored to have landed Chase Sexton for 2026 and beyond. Now, Chase has been telling everybody in interviews that nothing's signed yet, but I mean, of course that's what he's going to say. Do you really think he's just going to come out and admit that he's already signed with another team? I had a source tell me that there was a letter of intent signed actually over a month ago. So don't take it from me as gospel or anything, but I would expect to see the number 4 on green next year. Not sure how I feel about it. The dude looks so damn good on a KTM right now. Maybe we'll have a classic case of the grass is always greener, so maybe it will be greener on a green bike, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And then we've got Jorge Prado. The Spaniard will return for year 2 of what I believe is a 3-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal with a 3-year option. But Jorge Prado will be back in green next year. And this 2-man lineup would lead to the departure of Jason Anderson. I really have no insight on any landing spots for him at the moment. But as I get into some of these other teams, we'll go ahead and speculate on some possible spots of where he could end up next year. Now onto the Red Bull KTM squad, and things could really be getting tricky for these guys in the offseason. As we just talked about, they're likely losing Chase Sexton, but they do have the Cowboy, Aaron Plessinger, re-signed for next year on another 1-year deal. And then I believe the second spot is going to come down to 2 riders, the first being Tom Vial, and this all depends on how he does tomorrow night in Salt Lake City. If he wraps up his second consecutive 250 East Championship, then he will be forced to move to the 450 class, and I would think KTM would want to try to bring him up and keep him. And then the other rider possibly in line for this spot is actually Eli Tomac. Crazily enough, the rumors of Eli to KTM are starting to gain more and more traction. I feel like these rumors really just started because Eli was kind of running out of places to go, as Star Racing Yamaha looks to be full for next year. But Eli Tomac to KTM is now looking like a real possibility. Now onto the Star Racing Yamaha 450 squad, and this is the part of the team that you can actually fit in one photo. Leading the team back for 2026 will be Cooper Webb on year 3 of, I believe, his 3 or maybe even a 4-year contract. And it's been reported that Webb got a nice bump in pay for this year due to the fact that Tomac was supposed to be vacating the team and the sport, so he's sitting pretty. And then the team will also be retaining Justin Cooper for 2026. I believe the deal was kind of up in the air for several weeks, but after a really good ride at one of the later rounds, they finally got it sealed up, and Justin Cooper will return next year. And then finally, it's being reported that Hayden Deegan will be joining the 450 squad for the Pro Motocross Series next year, very similarly to how Jet Lawrence did it in 2023. And reports are that even for the Supercross season next year, he'll move his 250F under the 450 truck and he'll be in head-to-toe Fox gear. And I almost forgot about Christian Craig, who I believe is on a 2-year deal, but it's kind of with the 250 team. A little bit of a strange one. He was supposed to be working with Deegan and the 250 guys, but I'm not sure how good that worked out this year. And then the return to racing's been a little bit rough also. So I don't know if we see Christian Craig back on the team for 2026 or not, but if we do, I just hope we see the best Christian Craig we can get, because man, that guy is good when he's on. And how could they possibly leave Eli Tomac off the roster? Well, it's all about budget. The dude wasn't supposed to be still racing. Cooper Webb was signed with the intention of replacing Eli Tomac with a salary raise and everything. They've got Hayden Deegan moving up from the 250 class, which has surely been in the works for years as well. And then they re-signed Justin Cooper, which in their eyes I would think is an investment in the future rather than in the present, as Eli's at the end of his career. So whether they're right or wrong, or if you disagree or agree with them, those are the reasons that Eli Tomac will not be returning to Monster Energy Star Racing next year. Now onto Rockstar Energy Husqvarna Racing, and this team is definitely downsized in the last year or two. Next year, the team will have RJ Hampshire in the 450 class. No matter what happens tomorrow at Salt Lake City, whether he wraps up the 250 East Championship or not, he's going to be forced to move up to the 450 class, and he'll do so with the Husqvarna team as he's under contract for next year already. And then their current 450 rider, Malcolm Stewart, I think there's a possibility that he returns to the team, but that's one of two options for next year for Malcolm. And we'll get into the other one shortly, but the other one has been picking up more steam as of late, so Malcolm may not return to Husqvarna. Now here's a team I'm really not sure about, the Rockstar Energy Gas Gas squad. And unless you've been living under a rock, you know about the troubles with the KTM group and their financial struggles. So of the three brands, KTM, Husqvarna, and Gas Gas, under the KTM umbrella, I'm thinking if any of the three are on the chopping block, it would be Gas Gas. And they were already only down to one rider with Justin Barcia this year, and I don't believe he'll be returning to the squad next year because there's heavy rumors that he will actually be riding for the Ducati effort, a brand new team, brand new bike and Supercross and Motocross for 2026. And I think Ducati and Barcia could be a match made in heaven. Apparently they're made to be revved up high in the RPMs, and we all know that's where Barcia likes to live. He doesn't even have to pay rent there. So that could be a super interesting development heading into next year. And even the bike on screen, the 222 of Antonio Caroli, reports are that we might even see him at a couple of pro motocross races this summer in 2025. Now onto the Triumph Factory Racing team, a brand new effort in 2024, only starting with the 250 team, and they will expand and move to the 450 class in 2026. And I've heard two names being thrown around for the spot, the first being Malcolm Stewart. It's being reported that he could be joining the team next year, as well as bringing along Rockstar Energy sponsorship, and these rumors have been gaining a lot more traction in the last couple of weeks, so this might be something that we see next year. And then the other option I've heard is actually Jordan Smith. I've heard talk of Triumph maybe moving him up to the 450 class instead of having him ride the 250 class again next year, but those talks maybe have cooled down just a little bit since Malcolm Stewart has been brought into the picture. This next one couldn't really be much more straightforward, the HRC Factory Honda team, and they will retain both Hunter and Jet Lawrence for next year. And Jet has been rumored to have signed one of the biggest contracts in motocross and supercross history, and a long-term deal at that, so expect him to stay with the team for many years to come. If either of the two brothers were ever to leave, I would think it would be Hunter, but that's pure speculation there. I think these two have found a home for at least the very near future and beyond. Another one that's going to be very straightforward, the Factory Beta Racing team, and these guys have really gained some good momentum over the last couple of years, especially in Supercross. Haven't really done much in Pro Motocross yet, but Benny Bloss has already signed an extension to remain with the team for next year. And then I'm not 100% sure on this one, but I believe Mitch Oldenburg will also remain with the team next year. He's had a great year. They've both made the bike look good, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And now to the Kickstarters, the Huffies, HEP Suzuki. I'm only kidding. These bikes are plenty capable, as always shown by Ken Roczen. And there were rumors of Roczen shopping around for maybe Ducati, maybe Triumph, something along those lines. But now people are reporting that he is seeking an extension and maybe even already signed it with the Suzuki squad. And then also Colt Nichols, not 100% sure if he's under contract for next year or not. And then for Pro Motocross this summer, they'll have French MXGP racer Benoit Paturel stepping in. So pure speculation here, but maybe depending on how this summer goes, maybe he gets an outdoor-only spot for next year or something like that. And then there have been rumors of a Dylan Ferrandis to HEP move, although I don't think they're very strong rumors as he's found himself a nice home over at the Phoenix Honda team. And then maybe even some Jason Anderson talk to HEP, because really, I don't know where this guy's going to go, and I don't know if anybody else does either. Maybe if Malcolm Stewart doesn't work out at Triumph, he could go there, but options are really starting to dwindle for the 21. Or maybe he could even end up at a team like Club MX, who have had 450 riders before. They're a 250 only squad for this year, but Jason Anderson has done some training out there, so the move would make sense. But that's another one that's pure speculation. But what's not speculation is Club MX was actually in talks with Eli Tomac. You can choose to believe me or not, but it's true. I don't know if the talks went all that deep because Eli needed some factory parts and a lot of money, of course. And with Club MX not being a factory effort, it was going to be a challenge. I think there were some factory parts that they weren't able to get access to, so that unfortunately stopped the Eli Tomac, the Club MX talks. And there were even Justin Cooper at a Club MX talks as of even a couple of weeks ago. But then he had a couple of really good rides, good results, so Star went ahead and locked him down. And as we're almost finished with the 450 class, we'll go into the Quad Lock Honda team. A bit of a smaller effort, but they've been putting in some awesome results this year. I have no insight on what they're going to be doing next year, but they've been really good with McElrath and Savacci, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that lineup remain for 2026, and then also the Phoenix Honda team. Again, no insight, but I see no reason why Ferrandis should leave, so maybe they'll continue with him for next year. Now, onto the 250 class. We'll start with the team that's had the black cloud hanging over their heads for years now, the Monster Energy Pro Circuit Kawasaki team. For starters, they got a couple of guys that they locked down last year on 2-year deals, the first being Seth Hamaker. He'll be back with the team next year. And then also Cameron McAdoo. Good for him to have another shot next year. This year was kind of over before it even started, but he'll be back to send it for the Pro Circuit squad next year. And then Levi Kitchen just signed a 2-year extension to stay with the team for 2026 and 2027. He had other suitors that we'll get into shortly, but he'll be staying green. And then Drew Adams, another one who's just signed a multi-year deal. And I don't think any of you guys have seen the best of Drew Adams just yet. He's got the potential to be a future champion for the Pro Circuit Kawi team in the very near future. Now, those 4 are already signed, sealed, and delivered, but this last spot, or maybe 2, is up in the air between a few riders, the first being Ty Masterpool, who's had a bit of a rough year, but outdoors is his bread and butter, and that's what's coming up, so depending on how his summer goes, maybe he'll stay with the squad, maybe he won't. Also, Garrett Marchbanks, who was there on a 1-year deal this year, his future is also up in the air and may also depend on how his summer goes. And then there have even been talks of Joe Shimoda returning to the team, very similar to how Garrett Marchbanks did this year. And Joe is one that may have a few potential landing spots that we'll get into shortly. And I even heard a rumor of Julian Beaumaire to Pro Circuit, but unless the team manager from the team is just lying, Juju is already signed with the KTM team for next year. Next up, the 250 side of the HRC Factory Honda squad, and they will be retaining the number 10 of Chance Hymas, as I think he had some clauses in his contract that he had to meet in order to get an extension, and he has met them. And then their other current 250 rider, Joe Shimoda, I think he may be in the absolute opposite predicament as Chance Hymas, as he had those contract stipulations, but he may have not met them, and he is looking at possibly being let go from the team. And I'm not 100% certain about those contract stipulations, but I have heard reports of maybe some friction between Joe and management, whether that be with WMG or with Lucas Myrtle. I don't really know. Those are just some things I've heard. And then I believe on the Vital MX Silly Season video, I even heard them mention Daxton Bennick in the conversation for an HRC Honda ride. And that seems kind of random, but I would love to see it. It would be an awesome opportunity for Dax. Up next, the 250 portion of the Rockstar Energy Husqvarna team that have been attending the Downsizing National, and the main name that I've heard in the conversation for Husqvarna next year is Joe Shimoda. I think there were actually rumors of Joe joining the Husqvarna team a few years ago, right before he actually signed with HRC Honda. And I think the Husky rumors are the strongest in regards to Joe Shimoda. And then as far as the rest of the team goes, I haven't really heard anything. The only name that I've even heard mentioned at all is Landon Gibson, one of their current amateur SMX Next riders. But he just moved up to the A-Class, and he's still very young, so I think it could still be a year or two before he moves up. Now onto the Red Bull KTM team, and these guys are about to be in some murky territory depending on how the finale at Salt Lake City goes. They've already got Julian Beaumaire signed, sealed, and delivered for 2026, according to team manager Ian Harrison, so nothing to worry about there. 2 Jews is back for next year. But the real question mark is regarding Tom Vial. Depending on whether he wins the championship or not in Salt Lake tomorrow night, decides whether or not he is even eligible for the 250 class anymore after 2025. So if he wins the championship, he's out. But if he does not win the championship, one would only assume that he'll stay in the 250 class and stay with the Red Bull KTM team. And total speculation here, but if he does wrap up the championship, maybe next year he does 450 Supercross and 250 Motocross for the KTM team. And I heard reports that KTM made a run at Levi Kitchen, but they got shut down as he returns to the Monster Energy Pro Circuit squad. And Daxton Bennick's name has even been thrown around for this team as well, so it seems Daxton Bennick is actually looking pretty highly sought after for 2026 and beyond. Next up, we'll dive into the biggest team in the history of the sport, Monster Energy Star Racing Yamaha. The team will keep Hayden Deegan for 250 Supercross, but he will move over to the 450 truck, change gear, and then he will move to the 450 class for Pro Motocross. Max Anstey will return on year 2 of a 2-year deal. Cole Davies will be back with the team for year 2 of a 3 or maybe even a 4-year deal. And after winning a championship in 2026 and 2027, he will be in the 450 class by 2028. You heard it here first. Nate Thrasher will also be back on year 2 of a 2-year deal that he signed last year. And then Pierce Brown, who we unfortunately have only seen lead the East Region opener earlier this year and then go out with injury. He will also be back for his second year of 2 in his current contract. Then you have Dax Bennick, who is currently on the team, but I have no idea of his status on staying with the team next year. I would think they see some potential and want him. I hear a lot about insane speed during the week and just maybe not bringing it to the races. And then we have Michael Moseman, kind of a mystery. I haven't heard much about him, so I would kind of expect that he may be departing the team. But I don't know that, just speculating. And then you have a brand new announcement just this week that Jeremy Martin will be joining the team for Pro Motocross the first 3 rounds at least this summer. So whether that transitions into something more long-term, we'll just have to wait and see how the first 3 rounds this summer go. Then we have current amateur Caden Dudney. This kid is special. He will be a lethal addition to the lineup in years to come. And then rumor also has it they've signed amateur Landon Gordon, who you've probably seen winning a lot of SMX Next races this year. And then they also have B-Class young gun Carson Wood, who may not be pro for a few more years, but they have got a lot of talent in the pipeline, as per always. Then we have the Rockstar Energy Gas Gas squad, and like I said earlier, I really don't know if this team is still going to be around or not next year. If the team does stick around in the paddock, then I think of the 2 riders they have, Ryder DeFrancesco would be the likely one to stay. If the team doesn't continue, then maybe he'll move over to Rockstar Energy Husqvarna, or maybe even KTM if everything falls through for them. I don't really know. Their other current rider, Casey Cochran, has been out injured all year. I have not heard anything about him re-signing with the team next year or anybody within the KTM group, so I hope he finds a landing spot because he is a really good rider. He just needs some time to show it. Winding down here, we got the 250 portion of the Triumph team. Maybe they'll be Rockstar by next year if Malcolm Stewart joins. Maybe they won't be. But next year, they'll pretty much have the same lineup as this year mostly, as they'll have Jordan Smith on his second year of his contract. And whether he stays 250 or goes 450, he'll be on the team either way in some capacity. They'll also have Austin Fortner on the second year of his multi-year contract. They'll have Jalik Swoll, who just signed a multi-year extension while he's been out injured with a blown Achilles. And reports are that he was going next level fast during some preseason testing. So he could really be one to watch for on this Triumph team moving forward. And then Styles Robertson, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I thought I saw somewhere that he had a 2-year deal, so maybe he'll be around next year for 2026. And then also kind of a wild card, the Denmark rider from MXGP, Mikael Harup, and he'll be racing for the team in Pro Motocross this summer. And reports are that his Supercross testing went very well, much better than expected until he had a wrist injury this winter. He's contracted to go back to MXGP next year, but I think there are rumors that if everything goes really well this summer, maybe he'll try to stick around. And then finally, the Club MX Yamaha squad. They have been growing and getting better and better by the year. And they will have Cody Schock and Max Volan both under contract for multi-year deals as they'll enter the second year of both of their deals. As far as the rest of the team goes, I'm not allowed to name any names, but I do know they're talking to a lot of people, current factory riders, and pretty much anybody they can possibly speak to. They're trying to grow their pipeline from the 450 class all the way down to the amateurs and the B classes. And I would expect next year to see an even bigger Club MX effort than we did this year, as they might be going up to 5, maybe even 6 riders. And to cap it off, there's tons of B-level but really good 250 teams like Quadlock Honda, BarX Yamaha, AEO Powersports KTM, PRMX Kawasaki, Phoenix Honda, and many more. Those teams usually finalize their plans a lot later. I have no idea what they're going to be doing for next year. They usually kind of have to wait for those factory dominoes to fall, and then they try to pick up the scraps. But that's all I got for you guys today. I hope that was some great silly season info that gave you some insight on what may or may not be going down next year. A lot of moves still in play, still up for grabs, and these kinds of things are changing every day. So stay tuned for more updates. I'll try to keep myself as in the loop as I can, and I'll bring you guys along with me. But thank y'all for tuning in. I'll catch you guys next time.